Hi everyone, Hare Krishna. Just give me a few minutes because we are very few at the moment. So we can, I think, wait for a while. Wait for the next 4 or 5 minutes, right? You have 1 minute to go for 4. Okay. So you're all early. Hello, Kumarji. Namaste. Okay. So today's, it's going to be very interesting and thought-provoking because it's about karma. And it's about destiny and free will, which people have been asking from this from the very first class. So we're going to touch upon that. Another thing that I keep saying is that it's kind of these concepts are not something that you learn in a couple of minutes or a few hours or something like that. So it takes more time than we expect it to take, and it's all right. So we need to give that time for these things to sink in. It's just that once we start trying to learn about them, eventually, as it is said in our Guru Parampara, it's difficult with our limited senses to try to understand these things. Eventually, by the grace of the Gurus and by the grace of God, things get revealed to us in a sense that we can understand them despite having limited senses. So we have to give ourselves that time. Right. All right. Perfect. So last week we had studied about the second chapter, and we had this acronym for the second chapter. I'd love to know if you all remember what that acronym was for the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I can let you all put answers in the chat box. What was the acronym for the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? Getting like instant responses. Kumar sir says it's Gita. Yes. Indumati, Saumi, you're all perfectly right. It's Gita. And what does each of these letters stand for? Gita in this acronym. It's just a quick recap so that I can proceed to today's lesson. I'm not sharing the summary slide from the last chapter just to see what you all remember. It is Gita, but what does each letter indicate there? What does it mean? Oh, wow. Okay, I have answers. So G stands for Guru. Okay. I for identity. T for two dharmas, and A for Ananda. Perfect. You're all getting it perfectly right. Okay, let me ask a little more focused question if anyone has paid so much attention. So what did we study when we learnt about Guru, and which shlokas in the second chapter give us a description about this? You can take a cheat, you can go look at that summary slide that I shared with you all. Right. Okay. Prashant says 1 to 10. Okay. What did we learn about when we spoke about Guru? Did we learn about it? Okay. Just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen for today's chapter. All right. It's done and dusted, so it's forgotten, I think. I don't see anyone responding on this. We learned to surrender, Shivani. Okay, very nice. Yes. We learned to surrender ourselves to Guru, right? So surrender is a continual concept in the Bhagavad Gita. We are first introduced to what surrender is with Arjuna's example in the second chapter. So when he's in a situation where he's unable to decide for himself whether what he is doing is right or wrong, he decides to take shelter of Lord Krishna, and that's an example of surrender. So we begin with an example of surrender in the Bhagavad Gita, and we'll further in today's chapter also see some part of what surrender means. Okay, right. So I'm going to share my screen now. We're done with the recap for Monday's session. So like I always begin my sessions, I'd like to start with a prayer. Before the prayer, I'm humbly requesting for all of your blessings and prayers so that whatever I am attempting to say today may be in accordance with what Lord Shri Krishna tried to convey to Arjuna, right? And maybe in accordance with the Guru Parampara and whatever they've been trying to tell us, right? So please give me your blessings and your prayers. And I'll begin with a small prayer. You can all join me in the prayer, right? Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Right. So, like always, I'd like to dedicate the session to the founder Acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has brought in the message of Lord Krishna all over the world. Right. So, the overview for today's session is through the acronym TREE. Okay, T-R-E-E, TREE. So, T stands for Tyaga. R stands for regulated activities. E stands for exemplary. Exemplary meaning here setting an example. And E, the next E is the enemy. So we're going to see what all of this means, right? So we're looking at the third chapter and we're seeing the overview of the third chapter, which is tree. So T stands for Tyaga. What do you all understand by the word Tyaga? Whoever knows Hindi or, whoever knows the Indian languages should have some idea about this word. Okay, Arushi says it's sacrifice. Yes. Yes, one meaning is sacrifice. What else? What do other people think? Lalita auntie, what does Tyaga mean to you?
Basically, sacrifice in different forms.
Okay. Auntie says sacrifice in different forms. Prashant says to give up something. Okay. Kiran says nyuchawar karna. Okay. Which also I think means sacrifice, isn't it? Right. What about Deeptanshu?
Renouncing something.
Renouncing. Okay.
Renouncing as in, for example, if we own something and we give it up.
Okay. When you give up something that you own, and that renunciation is called Tyaga, is what Deeptanshu is saying. Aparna ji, aapko kya lagta hai? What do you think Tyaga means?
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Okay. So Tyaga, yes, Tyaga in our culture means sacrifice. Okay. And there are different people who interpret it differently, right? Somebody says that the a lot of people think that sacrifice means Vedic sacrifices, where you light up a fire, havan, in the havan, and then you offer things into that fire. And that's also called a sacrifice, right? It's also called a fire sacrifice. It can mean a different thing, where in life you are giving up something that is dear to you. That can be called sacrifice, right? So sacrifice can mean different things to different people. And that's why in the Bhagavad Gita, in the third chapter, this sacrifice or renunciation, okay, I think the word that's more appropriate is renunciation, we'll see why, is classified as two types, okay? Real renunciation and false renunciation. So what's the difference between real renunciation and false renunciation? Okay, does anybody want to take a guess? So first 9 shlokas of the third chapter are dedicated to this, the difference between real and false renunciation. When do you think it's false renunciation and when do you think it's real renunciation? So we all go to temples, right? We all go to temples, or let's say just prayer areas at home, the mandir at home. And then, imagine 2 people, okay, 2 siblings. One person goes to the temple and says, Dear God, I have an exam tomorrow. And, you have to help me with the exam. Make sure that I get good marks. And I'll make sure that tomorrow you get a coconut in return. Okay, so I'll break a coconut for you if you ensure that I get good marks. This is one sibling. The other sibling goes to God and just prays that, be with me and give me strength, right? And, this is one, I'm just talking about 2 emotions here, and it strongly resonates with real and false renunciation. So which one do you think is a real emotion here, and which one do you think is a business deal?
The first one is like my master's course international.
Diptanshu has a very fascinating answer. He's saying it's the first person who gave a coconut in exchange of good marks is like his IB international business course, right? In Dundee. Okay. Right. So, okay, we have something in the chat box. On one hand, we say that I renounce a particular thing, but we are constantly craving for it inside. He got to the exact point what we are going to get to next. So when we give up on something, we intend to give up, or we decide to give up on something that's very dear to us, and it can be as silly as sugar, okay, because we have Lalita auntie with us. And a lot of people now, especially in India, we're all not we are all, sorry, but a lot of people in India have diabetes. The first thing the doctor says to them is give up on sugar. And it's such a shock because we Indians are so much used to having desserts and sweet stuffs in every single festivity. And in a week, in a month, we're bound to have at least 4 festivities, which is, if we go by the proper Hindu calendar. So in all those festivities, prasad to banna hi hai, and prasad is usually sweet. That is one reason. And we're so used to this, having this sweet tooth, that, somebody saying leave sugar sounds like a big shock in life. But what happens? You say, okay, now the doctor has told me I'm going to give up on sugar altogether. So you stop taking sugar. Everything that you eat suddenly starts tasting horrible. Huh? And you're wondering, how can you even eat something like this? This is what happens. And ultimately, you have virtually left sugar. You're not taking it. But all you think about all day, despite having hundreds of other problems in life, is sugar. Right? This is exactly what happens. So this is the nature of our mind. I was listening to some lecture by a Buddhist monk, and he was telling the story where his guru tells him to stop thinking about monkeys while he's meditating. And through that entire duration of meditation, all he can think about is of different types of monkeys jumping, dancing, eating bananas, doing all kinds of things, but it's only monkeys. Especially when we try to avoid something, that is something that keeps haunting us forever, right? So this we will see. What what do you think? If you have to think about this as renunciation, somebody virtually left sugar, but all they think about is sugar, sugar, and sugar. So what do you think? Is this real renunciation of sugar or false renunciation of sugar? Okay, Diptanshu says it's false. Prashant says it's false. Yes, yes. So this is false renunciation of sugar, yes. Even though you have virtually left sugar, let's say that this person is not having sugar at all, completely stopped having sugar, but still mentally he thinks of sugar. And that's why we still consider this to be false renunciation. Because renunciation is not something that you do physically or virtually, right? You do, there is a mental and emotional component to it, without which it's false. Okay, we'll see what this means. All right. We have Moksha. Hi, Moksha. Hare Krishna. Moksha is 9-year-old. Am I right? Moksha is a 9-year-old and she was in person here
I
for.
am 10 years old.
Oh, sorry. I made you 1 year younger. So Moksha is 10 years old and she gave us correct answers in the first session of our Bhagavad Gita. So she's among the brightest students here. Okay. So what do we see about false renunciation in the Bhagavad Gita 3rd chapter? Okay, I'm going to read the 6th verse of the 3rd chapter. Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasasmaran indriyarthan vimudhatma mithyachara sa uchyate. Mithya in Sanskrit means false. So the translation is like this: one who restrains the senses of a certain action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Right? This is exactly what we discussed. Someone decides to leave sugar, but all he can think of is sugar, sugar, and sugar. So he's pretending that he has left sugar, but internally he's still constantly with sugar, more than ever, more than before. Right? So this is false renunciation. This is mithya. This is pretending. Okay. But what is true renunciation then? In the 9th verse, we see this. Yajna yasarthat karmanonyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Right? So what does this mean? Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Okay. Here they've cited Vishnu. It can be any god, your Ishta Devta or your deity that you worship. So when you do all your work as a sacrifice for that God who has provided you with everything, then you are freed from the bondage that arises from work. Okay. So everybody has heard of Newton's third law and it's applicable in karma. So what is Newton's third law, please? Okay, perfect. I've gotten an answer from Diptanshu, which is correct. Oh. What is it in the chat box? If you studied in any school in India, you would definitely know this. Otherwise, your physics teacher will be mad at you. Prashant says, to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Perfect. So all of us will have this in rote memory, because the kind of teaching that we have seen, we should remember it, right? So yeah, every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Just like that, any action that we perform in life definitely has its own consequences, good or bad, right? But what is karma yoga? Yoga actually means connection or union. So when you're doing something, but you are involving God in those things, right? You're doing something, but you see the involvement in the presence of God, and you say that, look, I'm going to do this work, but I'm offering this work for you. I'm doing it for you as a sacrifice. So whatever I get in return for this work, as a consequence, whatever happens, good or bad, I'm offering it to you. Okay. That does not mean that we do what we like, Let's say Hitler, who also read the Bhagavad Gita and gave an interpretation, he says that I killed a lot of people, but I'm offering all the consequences of those murders to you. It does not work like that. So it has to be on the path of dharma or righteousness, right? We are always taught what is in accordance with dharma or righteousness, what will result in the welfare of others, what will not. So we have that basic conscience that's given to us. We need to make use of that discrimination or viveka and decide what we are doing. And whatever we do with sincerity, if we offer that action, which is called karma, and the result of those actions to God, then perform those. That is real sacrifice, right? See, when it is work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, has to be performed. Otherwise, this work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, who is Arjuna, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. Right? If you're doing something to satisfy the God who has given you so many things in life, then that God assures us that He will make sure He frees us from the bondage of all those actions that we have offered to Him. Right? We will see this in the further shlokas where He says, I will remove all the bondage that arises from these actions. If you offer these actions to me in true, genuine spirit, not so that, God, we are offering this food for you so that, tomorrow there are a lot of people who go to God and say, I need to get an offer from, let's say a big company, Apple or Google or something like that. God, I'm going to offer you laddus today. Tomorrow, make sure that I get an offer letter from Google. Huh? So, so this is like definitely business, okay? And God says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham, means with what intention you go to God, He will reciprocate the same to you. So if you're going there to do a business deal, you can expect a business deal in return. Okay, it's unfair to expect completely personal love and fatherly affection from someone whom you're going just for a business deal to, right? And it's so, what to say, we're so good with business deals, especially when it comes to God, because we go there, go to the mandir only when we need something. When, we say that, God, okay, I really like this girl or boy, ensure that, we get to progress ahead or get married to this person or something like that, and that's it, you forget it. And then after your relationship ends, you're totally forgotten about what prayer you made, and the next girl will come in the list or next boy will come in the list, right? It's just an example, not to hurt anyone's sentiments. So this is what we do. We go, we say that tomorrow in the exam I have to do well, and we forget about God. After the day the results come, that day we never remember that we have to go back and say thank you at least, even if it was a business deal. You ask something from someone. So I mean, there are a lot of people who go for funding from people, right? You go to these sponsors and ask for funding, and they give it to you, imagine. And a lot of times, God, with dealings with God, a lot of times you might get more than what you asked for, and still we don't have the basic courtesy to go back and say thank you. If it was a real person, a sponsor in front of you who is giving you money, you would definitely go back and say thank you and probably buy a chocolate or two or just give something to say thanks. They might have given you a funding of 1 million, but you give them a chocolate and that makes them happy. But what we do with God, we go there, ask for things, get them, and forget about God, right? Until the next thing comes up in our life where we can go and ask again. So God is not like a place where you only go to ask stuff. God is believed to be a person, a personality. How hurt would someone feel if you keep on taking stuff from them, not even bother to look at them once your work is done, right? So that is false renunciation. True renunciation is when you go with, you know, go with a feeling like you are dealing with another person, right? And whether it's whatever attitude you go with, you say that, look, I'm going to do this action. I'm offering the action and its consequences to you. Okay. And rest, I know that you will take care of me. In a surrendered spirit, when we go and do this, God is very happy because it's believed that, in our culture, I know there might be people with different beliefs. In our culture, it's believed that God facilitates everything and He's the most powerful person. So He can do anything you want, said that somebody went and prayed that they want to be a multi-billionaire, okay, and CEO of a company and stuff like that. They ended up being a multi-trillionaire, right? So God has unlimited potency and capabilities. Depends on what you go and ask. Someone might ask for a job offer. Someone might ask to be a multi-billionaire, stuff like that. What it depends on what you ask and how you further reciprocate and take your relationship with God forward, right? If you keep hurting this God again and again, you don't even go and say thank you. How can you expect in the future that you keep getting help, you keep getting love and support and guidance and stuff like that? But still, in most situations, despite our ignorance and indifference, we still keep getting that inner guidance, right? Out of God's mercy and compassion. We'll see. We'll see in further chapters what this means, what I just said. Okay. Yes, Diptanshu.
The example that you brought forward reminds me of something which I read in a holy book. I don't remember exactly which book I read it in, but it said that we go to God if we ask for something. Like for example, tomorrow I want to become a CEO, for example.
Yeah.
So I have to go through a process to become a CEO. You can't be like, oh, I want to become a CEO tomorrow, I just become a CEO, right?
Yeah.
So when we go through the process, which is a difficult process, then we keep complaining to God that why are you putting me through all of this?
Yeah.
So a very famous line I read that in order to shine like the sun, you need to first burn like the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. This reminds me of a question someone asked me in the first chapter, why didn't Lord Krishna end the whole war in 1 minute? He was capable of doing that. But now this is like you ask God that you want to be the CEO, and then you say that you do everything for me, I won't undergo anything, but you give the results to me. Something like I gave the example of you being a cricketer. Okay. Would you expect your coach to come and play the whole game and finally when they win the trophy, come and give the trophy to you? No, right? This kind of an expectation that we have is so unfair, but we still carry on to it and stick on to it. That's something that we need to get rid of. That's something that we need to renounce. Okay. So free will and destiny. Again, you can see the slide. We already discussed this slide. And I'm going to just repeat that. As we progress through the chapters, things will become a little more clearer. So what is your understanding of free will and destiny? Which one do you think you have control over? Is it free will or destiny that you have control over? Diptanshu says free will. Lalita auntie says she has control over destiny. Lalita auntie, you're a worshipable figure. Kartikeya says he has control over neither. Okay. Limited free will. Okay. Yes. Saumi says, I get very confused because are our actions not already predetermined by our karma?
Okay, so repeat it, please.
So Saumi says, I get very confused between free will and destiny because are our actions not already predetermined by our karma?
That's the question I think I asked you.
Right. Okay. But then can we not change our karma by good actions? Okay. What is free will? Right. So now the question comes, what?
Yesterday, right?
Sorry. Yes, we discussed free will the other day.
The horse example. The horse.
Yeah. The rope and the horse that's tied there. Perfect. So we have that same picture on the slide today. It's not a horse, it's a goat tied to a tree. Auntie's finding the goat very hilarious. Sorry. Right. Decisions which we choose will become our destiny. Okay. Karthikeya is really missing India. He's saying it is my free will to eat a mango, but it isn't available in the market. So what is destiny? Basically, destiny is something that is predetermined, okay, based on our previous actions and our previous desires. All right. So you, let's say in that same example, if we see the goat's example, which is on the screen, there is this goat which is tied to a tree. All right. And you can see there is this rope that has a certain length. So who decides where this, to which tree this goat will be tied, what length of the rope will be, and which part of the farmland or which part of the land will this goat be tied? Does the goat have control over these things? Which tree it is tied to, which rope is used to tie it, how long the rope will be, which grass, it is tied on, or which land it's tied upon. The goat, does it have control over this? I have had responses from in-person attendees. Yes, Kumar ji says no, the keeper. Okay, Kumar sir says the keeper has control over this. The goat himself, the goat himself does not have control over where he will be, right? In which location he will be. So destiny is something like which body or which country you are born into, who are your parents, who are the people that surround you. These are things that are not entirely in your control, right? These are somehow predetermined. So that's called, that is destiny, and destiny is shaped by your previous actions and desires, right? And the consequences that you have to bear for those actions. So basically the owner of the goat has control over where he'll be tied, what will be the length of the rope and stuff like that. But what does the goat have control over? The goat is tied in a field of grass. What does the goat have control over? Everyone's very quiet. Oh, the goat is tied, it's true. But he has some choice, right?
The grass eats.
The grass he eats, yeah.
Which side to go and eat?
Which side to go and eat the grass from? Yes. He has control over his hunger. Oh.
In the front door open.
Yeah.
You can't do that because you burn the motor out on the door.
Sorry?
You will burn the motor out.
Oh, okay. Okay, you can leave it closed. Sorry,
Yeah,
we just
I'll leave
had.
it
Sorry,
closed.
just a minute.
Sorry
We just had
to interrupt.
attendees coming in.
Well,
so-
they'll have to ring the doorbell and you'll have to open the door for them.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Bye. Yeah. So to eat or not to eat the grass is the goat's choice. Okay. Okay. To eat the grass or fruits. Okay.
And how much to eat?
How much to eat? He has control over his hunger. Okay. Right. Movement within an area, roam about within that radius of the rope, right? This is what we discussed last time. So the goat is not completely tied down and put into what to say, a space that can, where he can't move around. He is put in a space where he has some choice to move around, eat the grass from one side of the land and stuff like that. But it's very limited freedom, isn't it? Compared to a goat that's free to roam, this is a limited freedom. But destiny is something like the rope that the goat is tied with. There is some what to say, there is some opportunity to increase the length of the rope a little bit, to reduce it, to change how far he can go, very little bit. So
suppose the
yeah,
rope breaks, that's also destiny.
yes, suppose the rope breaks, that's also destiny. Yes. So basically destiny has very limited scope for any change, and does not change because it's predetermined by what we got from what we desired earlier to have. Okay. And what our previous actions and their consequences are. But there is free will always that we have complete control over. We have the control to make this choice on what we choose to do, whether we choose to do a business deal with God or whether we choose to have a loving relationship with God like any other person is our choice, right? You want to say that I want to be this sales and marketing person, I'll go and sell things to God. I'll say, you take this, give me that. So God accepts that. He's fine with it. It's your free will. He never said that you do this, do that. He just said, he tries to guide us, but never forces us to be a certain way. That is our free will and our choice, isn't it? So free will is like the choice that this goat can make. But we are tied down by destiny to some extent. But there is one person, if you are in good books with, the goat eventually, if he builds a trust with somebody, he has an opportunity to gain way more freedom to move around in the area. And who is that person? The keeper of the goat, right? So who is our keeper? If we were this goat, who is our keeper and who should we be aiming towards building a trust with? Okay, Guru. Pranav says Guru. Very good. No, Guru is a very good answer because God cannot be in person, everywhere. So he sends out his representatives who will deliver his message and, to people in person. And Guru is believed to be a representative of God. And if you if you build a trust with your Guru, that instantaneously builds your trust with God as well. So it's a very good answer, Pranav. Yes.
The Guru can take you for a ride too.
So we will see that in the further slides. So if you have to use, God has given each one of us intelligence to see who is a fake person and who is a real Guru.
Does it mean that you will get a Guru according to your karma?
Whether you get a Guru or not can be determined. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Does it mean that it is also your karma influences that?
Possibly. Yes. Yeah. Yes, your karma can influence whether you get a good guru or not. It's possible that in your previous lives, you have been this really good-looking orange robe clad saint and fooled thousands of people. How can you expect that you get a very sincere guru this lifetime? Those thousands of people whom you had previously fooled have undergone. You have taken them for a ride. So you are bound to experience the consequences of that.
And even the free will, the karma influences.
No. Free will is not influenced by karma.
Free will, we are doing it. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And they are also our free will. The karma influences our free will.
Free will influences your karma and its consequences, not the other way around. So you make a certain choice to do a certain action.
No, karma is what is we have to experience, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, karma is what we do. Karma literally translates to action.
What we do, what we have done also, we have to pay.
So there are different, the karma is divided into different types. But when we say karma, it means action. Not classifying it to past, present, or future.
Yeah.
It's just action.
Past, we have to pay for it, right? What we have done, what we had.
Yes. Yes.
And that can influence our free will.
Yeah.
Right or wrong?
No. What it can influence is our destiny, not the free will.
Yeah.
Free will is the choice that you will always have.
That is the destiny. Okay,
no. Oh God. So this discussion will go on. Don't worry. We'll continue this discussion and eventually you'll be able to get a conclusion. Sorry? Yeah, something like that. Something like that. But no, you can make sense of it. Okay. Saumi says, but for example, if I choose to study medicine and become a doctor, was I destined to become a doctor? Or did I have the free will to decide to become a doctor? So what you were destined to was having parents who can pay for your medical school fee, right? And what you had the free will to was to choose to study medicine, right? So that's how it is. You have an environment where, according to your destiny, you had the privilege of choosing medicine as a career. There could be very many other students who could not, there could be many other children who could not go to school at all because that was their destiny, isn't it? So, okay.
The person is born into a wealthy family because of the karma.
Yes. Yes, the person is born into a wealthy family because of his previous karma, and his previous karma thus has designed his destiny for this lifetime. In what circumstances you are is your destiny. But what you choose to do in those circumstances is your free will.
Yes, but
Right.
the